I feel like I was in USM preschool for about 8 years before I stepped into this room. Some of you may feel that way because you might have friends who've been in USM, and one of my very dear friends is very involved with the program. And I'd look at him and I'd think, I want more of what he got. How do you get that? The calm, centered, less triggered by everyday facts of life, like the man beeping at me today as I drove here. And I resisted for many years, but I finally decided to take the leap. My name's James Owens. I'm faculty at USC, not USM, and I'm also the founder of a children's literacy charity called The World Is Just a Book Away. And when I felt called to come and start at USM, everything in my analytical brain resisted because I had been struggling to finish a book. And some people talk about a book, 2 years, 4 years, 15 years. Very complicated book, an anthology, also called The World Is Just a Book Away, about books that inspired prominent people, from Buzz Aldrin to Jane Goodall. So lots of intellectual property and legal things. And then in the midst of that, my friend says, why don't you go to USM? And I'm thinking, how am I going to do that and finish the book? And he said, well, maybe you could look at it as a support to help you through the process of completing the book versus a burden to carry in addition to the book. He was right. By the time I came, I had other dear friends, and I see one of them and two of them in the background, who had talked to me about USM and encouraged me. And I learned so many life skills, and it's so funny talking about spiritual curriculum because I talk all the time for a living, and I'm so happy to be out there where you are during class and to listen to the wisdom of Mary and Ron. And I thought, I'll never be up on that stage. And then they called me and asked me to come up. So there you go, part of my curriculum. And I learned so many skills, but I want to highlight 3 for you tonight. And it's self-love, judgment, and attachment. And self-love, I realized that in life I've been an amazing, I think it's as Deepak Chopra says, I've been an amazing human doing and not really loving myself and being kind to myself and existing as a human being. And I made enormous strides in my journey of self-love in Soul-Centered Living 1, and I'm continuing that in Soul-Centered Living 2. Judgment. I knew I was judgmental, but I really didn't know just how judgmental until I started the class that I'd spent really big, Dan talked about 11 years in therapy. I'm a little older than Dan. Really big part of my life in judging myself so harshly, really being very unkind to myself and judging others, and as Ron talked about earlier, in blame. I had so many I'm upset because I could have a whole dictionary of them. And realizing through the program just the futility of that, and that others who are also struggling and they're also on their journey, but I can be more clear, I can accept responsibility, and I can also choose who is good to have in my life and who's not so good to have in my life. And the final was the hardest for me to understand, which is attachment. Because whenever my friends from USM would talk about attachment, I would assume they meant caring or not caring. But now I understand it as attachment, like this dogmatic clinging onto the way something must be when we don't really know what the curriculum is. And I've become much better at acceptance, and I'm still working on it, acceptance and flow and not being attached to what the outcome might be. I did not know Ron was going to talk about a book tonight. And Ron and Mary didn't know I was going to bring my book, I don't think. But I want to show you a goal line, reality. I finished the book. And thank you. And thank you. They are both in the acknowledgments of the book for the support that they gave me through the process. And I remember as the days were drawing down, and some of these people took me 10 years to get. And as the days were drawing down, I remember, and literally it was about to hit the press, I remember talking to Ron and Mary, and one day I said, President Gorbachev just finalized his submission. And the next time I said, the very last person to come into the book was the Dalai Lama. And then I thought, if the Dalai Lama can show up in my book, anything can happen, really. It's all is available. So in my journey at USM, I do feel that I have transformed greatly. In fact, Mary, on the last day of lab, I came up to you right here, and you looked at me and you said, James, you are truly transformed. And that really touched me. That meant a lot to me. And I've done a lot of work here on self-love, on releasing judgment, on releasing my attachment to outcomes. And I just want to invite you all to really continue to explore the beauty of this program and to consider gifting it to yourself and what it can mean to you in your lives. Thank you.